This piece of dirt cost $615,000. I raised every dollar it took to build on it, $765,000, and none of it was mine. When it's finished, it's worth $3.1 million. Here's the part that matters for you. I didn't get lucky on this deal. I ran a framework, the same framework I run on every deal. 4 steps, in order, repeatable. And I'm going to give you all 4 on this real project for free so you can steal the whole thing and go do your own. The first one is buy the dirt for what it'll become. Number 2 is raise the money before you need it. Number 3, protect the deal from everything trying to kill it. And number 4, get your capital back and roll it into the next one. Screenshot that right now. That's the entire system on one screen. But look, a screenshot won't teach you the part that actually matters, because on this deal, every one of those 4 steps got tested, and I nearly lost the whole thing more than once. A wholesaler tried to befriend me, and then he went behind my back to steal it out from under me. The seller nearly walked out and took a higher offer. The city froze my building permit for 4 months over a $13,000 bus stop. And as I'm making this video, I'm still fighting the bank for the money to finish it. That's why the framework is worth more than the numbers. Anyone can copy a spreadsheet. The framework is what keeps the deal alive when it tries to fall apart. And before you decide I'm just some guy who got handed money, I'm 29 years old. I came to North America from the Philippines at 16 years old. No degree, no license. Nobody in my family builds anything. And there's no rich uncle behind me that's writing checks. In fact, I tried to ask my rich uncle and he said no. I'm going to show you every number, every mistake, including the one that cost me more than any dollar amount, and it wasn't money. Alright, let me back up because context matters here. I want you to understand who was standing on that lot. I moved here at 16 years old. Different country, different accent, different everything. Even the way I dressed was different. And when I decided I wanted to develop real estate, I had nothing that's supposed to make this work. No construction background, no degree, no family money, no license, no investors. What I did have was a very specific problem. I had no idea how to underwrite a deal. And I want to be honest about that because most people on YouTube will not be. Underwriting is just the math that tells you whether a deal makes money before you buy it. That's it. That's the whole thing. But when you don't know how to do it, every deal looks the same. Every deal looks either amazing or terrifying, depending on your mood that day. Therefore, the first 18 months of this business for me was not about finding deals. They were about learning to read them. Because here's the thing nobody says out loud. Finding a property is easy. Anybody can find a property. You can find 40 properties this afternoon on your phone. Knowing which one of those 40 makes money, that's the skill. And knowing how to fund the ones that does make money, that's the business. But that's the second part, raising capital, is where I was even worse. Because I didn't just not know how to raise money. I thought raising money was for some other people that were allowed to do it. I'm going to come back to that because the way that I got my first $150,000 is genuinely the part of this story I get asked about the most. But first, you need to see the property because you can't understand why anybody gave me money until you understand what I found. Alright, so the property is in Alberta and it sits right next to a university and a hospital. Walking distance, not a short drive or next to transit. It's walking distance to campus. And I want to explain why I care so much about that because location gets said so often it becomes like background noise. Here's what proximity to a place like this actually means in numbers. It is an A+ location. You don't just rent easier, you rent higher and you stay full. Therefore, the same building, same square footage, same construction cost throws off a completely different number here than it would be 3 neighborhoods over. Same box, same build, different income. That gap is the entire business model. And here's what most people miss about a location like this. The people who pay a premium to be close aren't a single narrow crowd. It's faculty and staff, it's nurses and workers from the hospital, it's young professionals who want a short walk instead of a long drive, it's students, international and local, who want to sleep in as long as possible until they need to get to class. It's anyone whose entire day runs on being minutes from that spot. All of them have the same problem, and all of them solve it the same way. They pay a premium every single month to kill their commute. Therefore, they don't rent on price, they rent on proximity. And here's the part that de-risks the whole thing. These are people with steady incomes and steady lives. They don't just clear out, they renew. So the demand doesn't fluctuate, it runs on all 12 months. Convenience is the product, and in a location like this, convenience never goes out of season. But when I put in my offer at $615,000, the reaction was not good. I had people in my network, people I respected, people with more deals than me, tell me flat out that the number was too high, that I was overpaying for dirt, that I was letting excitement do the math for me. And here's exactly why they thought that. Those guys were used to buying land in B- locations for around $500,000 to $550,000. So to them, $615,000 didn't just look high, it looked insanely reckless. I was paying $65,000 more than the number that they burned into their heads. But a B- location and a lot 2 minutes from campus are not the exact same product. They just have the same word on the listing, land. And look, criticism is not stupid. That's the reasonable thing to say to a 20-plus-year-old, but they were pricing a B- lot. I was pricing what an A+ location lot could become. That's the difference between buying real estate and developing. And I'll tell you right now, the land is worth about $800,000 today as is without a single wall built. So the guys who said I was overpaying at $615,000, the dirt appreciated more than the criticism did. Okay, let's do the math out loud. So I'm going to give you the entire full stack, not the clean 2-line version most people show you, every single line item. Land, $615,000. That's the acquisition. Soft costs, $150,000. That is for permits, drawings, engineering, everything it takes before a shovel moves. Construction, $1.485 million. That is the build. Interest carry, $100,000. That's the cost of the money during the construction. And that is a non-Dutch loan, meaning I only pay it every time I draw the amount. Meaning that amount is only accumulated every time I take out a draw. And then $50,000 for contingency for the surprises. And there's always surprises. You'll watch me get hit with a few later in this video. Total project cost, $2.4 million. Completed value, $3.1 million. Now I ordered this appraisal even before I started digging. So 3.1 million minus 2.4, that's $700,000 of equity created out of nothing on a piece of lot that people told me was overpriced. Now let me show you the rent stack because that's what drives the value. Here's how rents actually stack. The upper units rent for around $2,900 a month. There's 3 bedrooms there. And the basement units rent for around $1,600. 2 clean units rented as whole units, no shared kitchen, no room headache, no by the room headache, just 2 solid tenancies stacked on top of each other. And these are row townhouses. But here's what people miss about ground up development. And it's the reason most investors never touch it. Everybody's heard the horror stories. Permits that drag, budgets that blow up, timelines that double. You'll watch a few of them happen to me later in this video. Therefore, most investors only look at development and see risk. But what they're actually seeing is difficulty, not weakness. The equity is bigger, the upside is real, and the reason it's still on the table is that most people tap out before they even get into it. That difficulty is the moat. If it were easy, the $700,000 in equity wouldn't be sitting there waiting. So the numbers worked. I knew they worked. Now I just had to get somebody to hand me the money to prove it. And that's where this story starts going sideways. So here's the structure I used. And I want to be really specific because this is the part people get wrong. The full $785,000 of equity in this deal came from just 2 investors. One of them funded the entire land purchase, $615,000 cash. You'll see why that mattered so much in a couple of chapters. The other piece is the $150,000 for soft costs, and that's the raise I want to walk you through first because it's the one that started everything. The $615,000, that's the land, but before you can build anything, there's a phase that almost nobody talks about: soft costs. Permits, drawings, architects, engineers, consultants, municipal fees, studies, environmental, and all the paperwork that has to exist before a single shovel hits the ground. That phase cost $150,000. And here's the brutal part. A bank will usually not fund that. Construction financing funds construction. The lender shows up when there's something to lend against. Therefore, someone has to bridge the gap with pure equity, money with no collateral, no building, nothing but a plan and a person. Now, you could get that with business line of credit and personal credit at 0% down, and you could get up to $300,000 to get funded with that. But I had completely horrible credit score, so I had to raise money. And I had $0. And let me say that again, because I think people assume I'm being modest. I have never used my own money on a deal. Not this one, not on any of them. And I intend to raising money for all my future deals. I raised $150,000 from 2 investors. But you don't raise $150,000 by asking for $150,000. You raise it by being the person who already did the work. Here's what I mean. When I sat down with investor A, I did not just bring energy. I did not just bring a vision. I did not just bring, hey, trust me. I brought underwriting. I brought the land comps. I brought the rent survey from around the campus. I brought the construction budget line by line. I brought the exit math, and I brought the downside. What happens if this goes badly? Therefore, the conversation stopped being give me money and became, here's a deal, do you want in? That's the whole shift. Investors are not funding you, they're funding a return that they can verify. And the reason they can verify it is because you did the work before you walked in the room. And I want to say something to whoever's watching this thinking they can't raise capital. The reason you can't raise capital right now is not that you don't know rich people. It's that you can't yet answer the second question. Anybody can answer the first question. What's the deal? But nobody can answer the second one. What happens if you're wrong? Answer that and the money starts showing up. Now, that's how I raised the first $150,000. One investor at a time. But I don't raise money this way anymore because I built a machine that funds the entire capital in under 7 days without a single meeting. Let me show you exactly how it works. Here's the thing nobody tells you about raising money. The problem is never the deal. The problem is timing. A great deal shows up and you've got days, sometimes hours to lock it down. Therefore, if you start looking for money after you find the deal, you've already lost. You cannot build a list of investors in 72 hours. You have to already have it. So here's what I did, and this is the part I want you to steal. I started a Facebook group. Now, a Facebook group sounds like nothing. Everybody's got a group, but here's the move that makes it a machine instead of a hobby. To get in, it's not enough to just click join on my Facebook group. I made it mandatory. To be approved, you have to give me 3 things: your name, your email and phone number, and how much liquid capital you have to invest. I want you to read that third one again. How much liquid capital you have to invest, because that's the entire trick. Therefore, I'm not building an audience. I'm building a pre-qualified database of capital. Every single person in that group has already told me at the door how much money they can deploy. I know who can write a $10,000 check versus someone who can write a $100,000 check before I even say a word to them. And I literally have their phone number, so I can just call them up. Think about what that does to a raise. The old way, you find a deal, then you go begging, hoping someone says yes. The new way, a deal comes up, and I don't ask anyone for anything. I send one email blast to everyone in that database at once. Here's the deal, here's a return, here's the downside. First come, first serve. And because they already told me they have the capital, because they already raised their hand to be in the room, it's not a pitch anymore. It's an announcement. And because I own the Facebook group, I'm the admin, I have absolute authority. Therefore, I've funded the entire project in under 7 days. No meetings, no coffee, no handshaking, no convincing. One email list to people who already told me they were ready. But here's where it gets even better, because a list like that runs out if you don't feed it. So I run ads, paid ads pointing straight to the group. Every day new people join in. Every day they hand me their name, their email, their phone number, and their capital. That's the only way for them to join. Therefore, the database doesn't just sit there, it grows automatically. While I'm on a job site, the list is getting bigger and more fundable without me touching it. That's the machine. Most people think raising capital is a skill you perform every time you need money. It's not. It's a system you build once and then feed it. Now, before you run off and copy this, one thing, and it matters, raising money publicly like this is regulated. I do this within proper exemptions. I only raise from accredited investors, and I use Regulation D, Section 506C. That's the exception that actually allows you to advertise a raise publicly, as long as every investor is credited and verified. That's why I can run ads, and that's why I can email blast a deal. It's built to be done this way if you do it right. So talk to a securities lawyer before you copy it, not after your first raise, before. And I want to be honest about why I'm showing you this instead of hiding it. Because the list is not the moat. Trust is the moat. You can copy the Facebook group thing tomorrow, but the money only moves when the people on the list believe you'll do what you said you would. That's why step one comes first. The machine only works if the deals underneath it are real. So I had the land under contract, the capital machine running, permits in motion, everything was lined up. And then a guy called me and asked to be friends. This is the part of the story that still gets me. A wholesaler reaches out. Friendly guy, complimentary, wants to connect. Hey, I love what you're doing. I see you on social media. Let's grab coffee. Let's do deals together. I took the call because that's business. Relationships are the business. 99% of the time, that call is exactly what it looks like. We talked. He asked about what I was working on, and I told him. Because why wouldn't I? But while we were building this friendship, he went directly to my seller and offered a higher price. Not a competing offer on the open market. Not two buyers finding the same listing. He learned what I was doing from me and used it against me. And now I'm sitting in a bidding war on a deal I already had. I want to be really clear about how bad that position is. My whole thesis was that $615,000 price point was already at the top of what makes sense. That's why people said I overpaid. Therefore, every dollar above that number breaks my underwriting. I can't just win by paying more. If I pay more, I win the property, but then kind of lose out. So I had two options. Option one, I chase him, pay more, feel good for a week, but then I bleed for the next 2 years. Option two, I win on something else other than the price. And that's what I did, but it cost me. Here's what actually happened. The seller had a higher offer sitting in front of him. He was ready to move. So I stopped competing on price and I started competing on certainty. Here's the move. I didn't wait on a bank. I didn't wait on financing to come through. I bought the land cash. The entire $615,000 funded by a single investor. One person, one check, land closed. Remember the capital machine from last chapter? This is what it's for. While the wholesaler was busy trying to outbid me, I already had an investor with the capital raised, sitting there, ready to deploy. And think about what the seller is now looking at. On one side, a higher number attached to a stranger, attached to conditions, attached to financing timeline that might fall apart. On the other side, cash, no bank, no conditions, money that closes. Therefore, the higher offer wasn't actually the stronger offer. So I put the deposit down, I removed every reason the seller had to worry, and I became the one buyer who could actually close, not the one waving the biggest number, the one who could put real money on the table now. But his move forced me to move faster than I planned, and I was a few days late behind paperwork. So I ate a late payment penalty, about $2,000. So $2,000 to lock down a deal that made $700,000. That's not a mistake. That's the cheapest thing I bought all year. And the wholesaler, he got nothing. I owned the land outright, cash, no bank in the picture before he even got a yes. So the land is mine. Hardest part is behind me, right? Not even close. Because owning the dirt is one thing. Building on it takes 1.485 million I didn't have in my pocket. And that money comes from the bank, released one draw at a time. Getting the very first one is where the next fight begins. So the land is mine, paid for it on equity. Now I have to actually build on it. And the build costs about $1.485 million. That's the construction loan from the bank. You don't get it on one lump. The bank releases it in pieces called draws. You complete a stage of work, an inspector comes in, verifies it, and then, only then, the bank releases money to cover the work you already paid for. Therefore, you're always spending ahead of the bank. However, there's this thing called net 30 or net 60 where you can negotiate with your contractors so that they do the work first. You don't get to pay them. You only pay them from the bank draw. And right now, as I'm making this video, I am living in that first draw. I'm still waiting on it. My framing is going up, the invoices are coming in, the work's happening, and the money to cover it is sitting in the lender's pockets, processing that moves exactly at its slow pace, and that's what I gotta deal with. But it's okay, I expect to have it in the next few weeks. But I want to be straight with you because most people editing a video like this would pretend it's already solved. And here's the lesson I'm taking from it. And it's the same one that shows up everywhere in this business. Your lender is not a logo on a building. It's a person and it's a process. And both of them move slower than you want at exactly the moment you need them to move fast. And what happened was my main lender actually got promoted. He used to be so fast. He's my main guy and he moves lightning speed. When he got promoted, he was out and a new intern came in and I had no relationship with this guy. I had to start from ground zero and it started in December and January. The worst time to be talking with a lender because this guy was on vacation for 2 months. So anyways, that's what delayed my commitment letter and now finally it's coming in about a couple weeks. And then right in the middle of all of this, the city sent me a bill for a bus stop. Okay, I need you to see this bus stop cost me $13,000. I didn't build it, I don't own it, I'll never use it. When you develop, the municipality looks at your project and decides it's going to bring more people, more traffic, more load on the area. Therefore, you have to contribute. A bus stop, an agreement with the city. $13,000 that was never in my model. But the $13,000 is not the part that hurt. The part that hurt is what they did with it. They used it to hold my building permit hostage. Let me walk you through the actual timeline because this is exactly where new developers get destroyed and nobody warns you about it. I applied for my development permit on July 10th, 2025. It got approved November 4th. That's about 4 months. That's completely normal. I planned for it. Now, after your development permit, the building permit is supposed to come faster. That's the next step. The hard approval is already behind you. But mine didn't come until March 11, 2026. That's 4 more months on a permit that should have taken a fraction of that. And the entire reason was this bus stop. The city would not release my building permit unless the municipal agreement over this bus stop was signed and settled. Therefore, I could not break ground. Not because I wasn't ready, because a piece of paper about a bus stop was sitting on a desk and nothing moved until it was done. And this right here is the mistake that cost me more than any dollar figure in this entire video, and it wasn't money, it was time. Here's what I didn't expect going in. The $13,000 you pay once, here's what I didn't respect going in. The $13,000 you pay once, it's over. The delay runs every single day. Every month that permit sat unissued was a month of investor capital tied up, earning nothing. A month of carrying the land with nothing coming in. A month I couldn't start the build, which shoves back every draw, every tenant, every dollar of income behind it. The whole timeline slides, all of it, over a bus stop. Therefore, I underwrite timelines completely different now. I don't use the optimistic number anymore. I build in real padding for exactly this. The municipal curveball you can't see coming and can't control. When I sit down with investors, I give the padded number, never the dream. Because the fastest way to lose an investor is not losing their money, it's surprising them. So, here's where we are right now. The project is in framing. Let me run the whole thing back one more time. Land, $615,000 bought cash, funded by a single investor. Soft cost to permits, $150,000 raised from the same one investor and another one. Construction of $1.485 million funded by construction financing. Interest carry of $100,000 and contingency of $50K. Total cost of $2.4 million. Completed value $3.1. Equity created $700,000. And the land alone, the dirt that everyone told me I overpaid at $615,000 is worth about $800,000 today as is. But I don't get paid on paper, so let me show you the real exit. Here's the play. When the project completes, I refinance. Let's be conservative and say I refinance at 80% of the $3.1 million value. This is called a DSCR loan, a term loan with Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac, or a permanent loan, because a construction loan cannot keep going once you're finished. It has to be refinanced out. So 80% of 3.1 million, that's roughly 2.480 million. Now out of that, I pay off the construction financing, I return the original capital to my investors, but, and this is the part most people miss, the investors stay in the project. So get their money back and they keep their position. Therefore, they've now got an infinite return on return capital. And I've got partners who will fund the next one even before I ask. Remember, my total cost is 2.4 million. Inside that 2.4 million is their original invested capital. I'm getting 2.480 and we're keeping an asset that generates cash flow every single month and it's growing in value every single year. That's it. That's the machine. That's the whole business right there. That's how I was able to scale super fast by developing real estate. You're not trying to sell buildings. You're trying to build assets that hand you back the money you used to build them so you can go and do it again. Nobody gets rich flipping. People get rich compounding. All right, real quick, before I close this out, if this breakdown was useful to you, if you learned even one thing you didn't know walking in, do me one small favor, subscribe, hit that like button, because I break down every single one of my deals exactly like this, number by number, mistake by mistake, all of it for free. If you want more breakdowns like this one. Okay, one last thing. I want to leave you with the thing I actually believe. Everyone wants the exciting version of wealth, the thing that changes your life in 90 days. Development is the opposite of that. It's slow, it's boring. Weeks spent on waiting on a bank to release money you already spent. $13,000 for a bus stop you'll never sit in. But at the end of it, there's a physical building on a piece of earth in an A+ location that stays full of tenants for the rest of your life. So that's not a bet, that's an asset. I raised $665,000, none of it was mine, and I turned it into a $3.1 million building. Not because I'm special, because I ran the 4 steps. Buy the dirt for what it'll become, raise the money before you need it, protect the deal from everything trying to kill it, and get your capital back and roll it to the next one. That's the framework. It's not mine anymore, it's yours. Go steal it. Oh, and by the way, what did my investors get in return? We all split the project. Investor A gets 34%, investor B gets 33%, and I get the remaining amount. So, just to be clear, I don't own 100% of this building. I only own a fraction of it. But I didn't use any of my own money. Plus, I can scale this to do multiple projects in a year.